Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, your guest co-host, the 2023 MMA Handicapper of the Year, Pepe Silva. Today, we're going to be talking about UFC Vegas 85, Nassourdine Imavov versus Roman Dolidze. And Pepe, it's going down this Saturday night, live at the Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. Two middleweights trying to stake a claim for a top 5 spot. You got Nassourdine Imavov, the Russian sniper that fights out of France, taking on Dolidze, the new father who at middleweight is out here getting calf slicers and all kind of ridiculous finishes. It should be a hell of a main event.
Yeah, it's a super intriguing matchup. And, obviously a lot of implications with the winner. It's a huge spot. It's going to set up whoever wins for, maybe 1 or 2 fights from a title shot. The middleweight division's now open, and they've needed fresh blood for a while, so it's really nice to see some prospects move up the rankings, even though Dolidze is coming off a loss. I don't think he really lost a lot of stock with that performance against Vettori. And then Imavov has looked really good as of late. So, yeah, it's very intriguing. I'm super excited to see how it plays out.
Well, let's get right down to business, man, because in the main event, we got Roman Dolidze. He's 12-2, representing Georgia, not my Georgia, the other Georgia, taking on Nassourdine Imavov, the Russian sniper, who's 12-4, representing France. Currently, they got it Nassourdine Imavov -162. The comeback on Roman Dolidze is +142. So off the bat, Pepe, one thing that really stood out to me is how it's kind of a different look when you see middleweights going for leg locks. Like, I know there's been guys like Rousimar, Palhares, and stuff like that, but I kind of put him in a different category because with Rousimar, it was always kind of like that thing, like that traditional leg lock guy where if he can't get his leg lock, he's ready to go home. Whereas I feel like Roman has other options. He's not just a leg lock or bust guy. He can also knock people out. But one interesting thing that crossed my mind was that Imavov has a really good training partner for that style. And you'd actually be surprised who I'm going to mention, Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane has won fights inside the octagon via heel hook and all kinds of things. It even cost him the fight against France, is dropping back for a leg lock. So I would actually be kind of surprised if Dolidze caught Imavov with a leg lock, because I think that this is something that these guys see in the gym regularly for whatever reason. Because I know MMA in France might still be, emerging and might be developing, but it seems like they got that part of the game down. But there's some interesting talking points because you look at that fight with Dolidze and Vettori. I kind of thought it could have went either way. I kind of thought at the time Dolidze won, but I kind of understand why he didn't win. But I also understand that Marvin Vettori probably has one of the most ridiculous chins in the history of the sport, man. You watch that Cannonier fight, you watch the Izzy fights, like the dude can just fucking take it. And it's going to be a sad day when Vettori finally gets knocked out. And I believe it might come soon, but man, had there been 2 more rounds in that fight, you never know. You never know. In the past, I kind of thought that Dolidze's cardio might be a bit suspect. I think that that's maybe gotten a little bit better with a little bit more maturity, a little bit more octagon time. But at the same time, I've said similar things about Imavov, Pepe. You look at the Phil Haas fight. You look at even the 3rd round of the Buckley fight. I'm actually, because I've seen a lot of people saying that Imavov might get this late. But I don't know, man. I think Imavov is the one that fades harder. What do you think?
Well, I think I do kind of think they both have cardio concerns. Dolidze, the fight that stretched out recently with Vettori, there was no grappling involved with that fight, so it was a purely striking fight. I think in his past fights, you can't really count the Hermanson fight because that fight ended shortly after they started grappling. But previous to that, he slowed down quite a bit after there was grappling involved in fights. So I do see the credence for why people think Dolidze slows down, and Imavov is slowed down also. He did go 5 rounds with Strickland, and, he did slow down a bit, but he did win round 5 against Strickland. So, yeah, I mean, we have seen him go 5 rounds. So I think he's a little more proven for me personally with the cardio edge.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I just think Strickland's a different kind of fight. Strickland's more, when they talk about winning minutes, Strickland's always going to be fighting behind a jab, but Strickland doesn't have as much of a danger threat per se, right? Don't get me wrong. I mean, if you're not ready for a Strickland fight, he will finish you. But I'm just saying at this level, He's not, as big of a power threat or a meme threat or whatever you want to call it, right? Because like you say, you don't put much stock into the grappling he had against Hermansson, but it was still very pretty. I mean, like that arm bar he threatened him with, and then he starts going to calf slicer. Like that whole sequence, to see a big guy do that, especially against a real grappler like Hermansson, like, that's Hermansson's game, is he says he's got the best ground and pound in the UFC. And man, that was very, very impressive. So but you can't obviously bank on stuff like that to happen all the time. But man, I have seen Phil Haas, grind out minutes against the fence against Imavov. And yeah, it's a tough one for me to call. Usually when it's tough like this, I would go with the plus 150 dog. And I think that Roman's just one of those dangerous guys that's hard to cap, because like if a fight goes the distance, there's a chance that he could have stared at you, but there's also a chance that you could have gotten knockdowns and submission attempts along the way. These days they're favoring a lot of damage. So I don't know. It's a tough one for me, actually.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of a tough one also. And like you said, Dolidze is a hard guy to cap. And I look back at my personal betting history with both of these fighters, and I think I have like a personal bias with Imavov and against Dolidze, because I've bet on Imavov a bunch of times, cashed as a plus 120 underdog against Ian Heinisch. I was on him big against Buckley. So I've kind of bought into him, and I've bought stock into him, and I think he has the higher ceiling as far as the two go. Dolidze, he's 35 years old, like he's definitely dangerous, and he could certainly win this fight. But things like speed are going to be difficult for him, especially as he's getting older, whereas Imavov is entering his prime physically and adapting new skills in the octagon. So I think he has the higher ceiling of the two, and a higher trajectory. So I like Imavov in this spot, but I do acknowledge it's a dangerous fight for him. I wouldn't be surprised if he did lose, but I think the speed advantage, the striking defense advantage, all favors him. And I was thinking about it, like the two of them kind of, even though they're both dangerous, they seem like two of the most durable guys in the division, like outside of Vettori. And, Vettori fought very close with Dolidze, but he doesn't have the footwork that Imavov has. He's kind of like a punching bag at this stage in his career. We saw that with the Cannonier fight. He's definitely on the decline. So I don't think Imavov is going to be as easily hit as Vettori was. So I do think that the jab is going to be there all day for him. I think he should be able to outvolume Dolidze. But I kind of do think it goes over. It's lined at 2.5, minus 150 to the over. So I don't think I would play that, but maybe like a GTD could be a sneaky look. I haven't fully considered if I'm going to play a total also. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's tough to say, because you're so right about how there is a speed advantage and a movement advantage too, but that movement, kind of that Cyril Gane kind of karate-esque movement that I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The kind of elusive, hands down, flashy footwork, all that, like to dart in and out. That takes a lot of energy though, bro.
Yeah.
And like that what do you think about that third round against Buckley? Because it's easy to just say, oh, he gassed against Buckley, but you got to put context into it. He beat the shit out of Buckley. And sometimes when you fuck someone up for that long of a time, you're going to gas. Like look at Malat the other day. Like Malat,
Yeah.
Like literally that third round when Malat was lying in Neal's guard, he was already done. He was so tired from whooping on Magny. Magny just reverse position, got him out of there real quick. So could there be an instance where Imavov gasses from having success?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and it was kind of the situation where he like clearly banked 2 rounds, so he was kind of just coasting to the decision once he couldn't get Buckley out of there. He did slow down, but I think part of it was also he's an intelligent fighter from what I see, and he knew that he had won 2 rounds, and all he had to do was get to the bell to have his hand raised, which is the most important thing.
It is. Yeah. What do you think about Roman's first fight week as a dad?
It's hard to quantify that, but it's definitely got to play a factor as far as motivation and everything. But it also can add stress and pressure too. Yeah, this is. I think Dolidze's became kind of like a different fighter after dating Cheyenne Bays. It seems like he kind of leveled up after they started hanging out again.
Yeah, I mean, now he's getting main events and he's doing the whole bit. So it sounds like we're on opposite sides, but I'm not that like confident. Like, so last time we went opposites on a middleweight main event, I got the right of it on the Cannonier Vettori fight, but that one I actually went head to head with you on a bet. This one, I mean, I kind of feel like I should just because I'm picking like a plus 150 dog outright, but I'm not delusional and I know what the concerns are. Like I'm very aware that I could be screaming, Roman, throw, like do something, you know? So it could be very, very frustrating if he gets outpointed. But man, 5 rounds is a long time for him to have one of his moments. And he's one of those. I mean, look, it's hard to quantify, like you said, but some of these guys, Cheeto Vera, they just have big moments and it works for them. That's just their style. And that's just Roman's style, you know?
Yeah, I don't think anyone can tell you with any bit of confidence how rounds 3 through 5 are going to look for this fight. And I mean, even 1 and 2, there's a lot of question marks. You know, still a lot to be seen on how Dolidze actually is. So yeah, it's an intriguing matchup. I think my side of things is kind of buying into the trajectory of Imavov.
What do you think?
Prime.
What do you think the trajectory is?
I think he can be a top 5 guy, especially only at 27 years old. You know, he's one of the youngest middleweight prospects. You know, he seems to be extremely durable. He rolls with punches really well. Pretty well rounded. His biggest knock is him slowing and kind of getting stuck on the cage. And we've seen Dolidze be able to implement that kind of, you know, boring, clinchy control game plan like he did against Staropoli. But yeah, I think Dolidze is going to slow down also. And I think he'll just be easier to hit for Imavov. And Imavov is just so fast, man. I think it's hard for me to picture how the grappling is going to look. No one's had a ton of success grappling against Imavov. He's just so like fast and strong, and you know his get-ups seem solid. So, yeah. And then Dolidze, his competition has been weird. He was fighting at 205 for a little bit. Now he's down at 185, and you know. We haven't seen a fight extend that he had to grapple early in. So, yeah.
No, those are valid points. And also, I like how you mentioned the progression of Imavov, because you watch his fight with Jordan Williams and Phil Haas, you compare it to the Heinisch fight. You compare it to the Chris Curtis fight. It's not a completely different guy, but it's like a much more developed, evolved, confident, mature, composed version of himself, even more physical too. It looks like he's been hitting the weight room as well. So you love to see it. So, I mean, this very well deserving of a main event. And I agree with you about he could be a future top 5 guy, because number 5 is Vettori, bro. I've been saying it for so long. I really think Vettori being a top 5 guy speaks volumes to how shallow middleweight is. I think that Brendan Allen might take that spot against Vettori. We got to see what the odds are there. And then there's the Imavovs, the Dolidze. So, yeah, there's some talent.
Yeah, we're finally getting some new blood in the division, which is nice. In a division that was stagnant for so long.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So opposites on the main event. Let's go on to the co-main event. So co-main event of the evening, we got Renato Money Moicano. He's 17-5, taking on Drew Dober, who's 27-12. Currently, they got it. Holy shit, man. Renato Moicano minus 190. The comeback on Drew Dober is plus 165. Interesting. Renato opened the dog. Now he's a huge favorite. So Renato Moicano is looking for his 10th UFC win. Drew Dober is looking for his 10th UFC knockout. Drew Dober is the UFC lightweight knockout king. And don't take that lightly, because my boy sitting behind me, Dustin Poirier, was right there neck and neck with him. Now, Dustin Poirier's got more UFC knockouts, because if you recall, Dustin Poirier started his UFC career in the featherweight division. But at 155 pounds, Drew Dober has the crown for the most knockouts. And listen, Renato Moicano's chin has been tested on a multitude of occasions. I was in attendance when Korean Zombie, it was basically like you could bring your baseball glove to that to that fight and catch Renato Moicano's head, because that's how Korean Zombie launched him in South Carolina, man. But then also at range, I love Renato Moicano's body attacks with his kicks, with his long punches. The way he lit up Calvin Kattar was nasty. It's just like in the fights that Renato doesn't get knocked out in, there's always that one sketchy moment in round one where he eats that big overhand. You're like, oh my God, Renato, like that first round against Kattar. That even Cub Swanson landed one of those before he got dropped with a jab and stuff like that. And you've seen the Fiziev fight and some of the other fights. But the thing with Dober, though, if I'm betting Dober, firstly, this price is great for Dober, and I definitely think he can knock out Moicano, but I'm not going to sit here, look you in the eye with a straight face and tell you that if Moicano takes the back of Dober, then I'm not going to be like, okay, well, this is over, So it's annoying when, I haven't listened to anyone's breakdowns, but I know damn well people are saying Dober KO, Moicano sub. And in most cases, I want to find another angle of, to go against that, but I do think that that's very probable. But I did mention to you the example of, Moicano fighting at range. He's very long, like the fight he had against Kattar. He can kickbox with a good striker, but I think that Dober's better at closing the distance than Kattar. I think that Dober's got more weapons than Kattar. Kattar's more reliant on just setting up that straight right down the pipe, which is goddamn step through right hand is absolutely money. I really hope he lands that on Aljo. But like Moicano can fight long. It's just Dober knows how to close that distance, and he only needs one, man. He can be getting lit up the whole fight, like in that Bobby Green fight, and he finds it one time, and that's all it takes. And Moicano can be checked like that. So what do you think? Because I took Riddell against Moicano. Terrible. He gets his back taken right away, game, set, and match. And I know that could happen here too. But I also know what else could happen. What are you thinking, man? Because at odds like this, and when we're talking in these terms, doesn't it seem coin flippy?
Yeah. So if you remember, like shortly after the Moicano Riddell fight, Riddell came out and said that, he basically like retired and said that like training hasn't been fun. His heart hasn't been into it. And he's kind of looked like a shell of his former self.
Real quick. Sorry. I apologize for cutting off. Who did Riddell just get matched up against?
Oh, shit. I don't know. I'd have to look it up, but I do remember seeing because I was kind of surprised he was coming back so soon.
And I like the matchup for the other guy. I just don't remember who the other guy is.
I'm looking that up right now.
Okay, yeah, because I was surprised. Like you were saying, Riddell retired. Riddell said he lost his motivation. He's going to take
Thiago Moises.
Ooh, okay. That's well matched. That's well matched. I mean, Moises takes that back. Hey,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
On the feet, it could be competitive too. But
yeah,
anyways,
you never know if Riddell's just like coming in for a check. He already mailed it in that last performance. He looked like a shell of himself. But
I think that Fiziev fight took a lot out of him.
Oh yeah, that was an absolute war. And the Dober fight too.
Dober fight, yeah.
That was an absolute war too. Both of them rocked multiple times. Had to dig super deep to beat Drew Dober. A very impressive performance. And then to come out and fight like that against Moicano was very disappointing. But a couple things that I noticed just from like a market standpoint was that, so Dober was, I think Dober was like minus 170 against Riddell when they fought. Moicano was around pick'em minus 120-ish. So, the market was a lot more skewed towards the Dober side. And that matchup, I like to cross-reference similar opponents when I'm looking at two fighters who are fighting, because a lot of times there's overreactions and stuff. And although Dober lost, I think he's being a little undervalued in this spot. And then another thing was I went back and watched the Korean Zombie fight, and the Zombie was lined at plus 160, exactly what you're getting Dober at here. So I was going to try to stay away from this fight because it does seem like a very binary matchup, one that's kind of hard to predict exactly who's going to get their game off. But after that big movement towards Moicano, I'm on Dober. Not a huge bet, but I think he's the side at the price.
Yeah, listen, when the fight first got announced, I leaned Moicano because I just thought he could take his back. I still think he can take his back. And I think it could be a one back take situation. Like Moicano is that damn good with his jiu-jitsu. He's so long. He's got that body triangle. Dudes that size with that body triangle, man, it's terrible. And
Yeah.
he's got an insane rear naked choke. Yeah, I mean, it's just these odds. If I was willing to bet Riddell, like was it plus 105, plus 115, then
yeah,
it should be like a no-brainer to bet Dober. It's just we know the concerns here. Like we know what are the things that are gonna piss us off here, you know?
Well, it sucks. It sucks betting on guys who have like big grappling deficiencies against the other guy because like once they get him down, like you're just throwing your money away at that point.
Yeah, it took Islam to the third round, but I mean that's a different matchup. Islam, I mean, is amazing, but I don't know. It's just a completely different matchup. We've seen
his takedowns are much better. He's a much more physically imposing grappler too. Moicano is definitely a really good grappler, but his takedown entries aren't the greatest. He doesn't have a ton of strength at the division, in my opinion. I'll concede that he probably has a little more ways to win because he can win via grappling and maybe he can outpoint him too. We're getting to the point where we've seen Dober's chin cracked. At some point there's going to be negative regression with him and the amount of wars that he's been in. But yeah, Moicano hasn't fought a power puncher in a while, so he hasn't had it. I mean, and he took a fucking absolute beating against RDA. Like that was tough to watch.
To his credit, it was like a day notice, but he still took the beating.
Beating. But RDA doesn't have that one-shot power that Dober has. So, even Jai Herbert was kind of rocking him a bit before Moicano got his grappling going in that fight. And I remember people saying, "Oh, Moicano's chin is dust," So, yeah, I'm willing to take the shot on Dober at this price.
I'll never forget when I thought Moicano was the future of the featherweight division, and I bet him against Brian Ortega.
Oh.
And like he was out there, like he was doing really good, and then he dives headfirst into a guillotine.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Renato. But yeah, I think at money line currently it's got to be Dober, but we know the concerns on both sides, so don't act surprised either way. Is basically what I got.
Yeah, exactly.
Featured bout in the welterweight division. We got Randy Rude Boy Brown. He's 17-5, taking on Muslim Salikhov, who's 19-4. Currently, they got it. Randy Brown minus 250. The comeback on Muslim Salikhov is plus 210. So earlier I mentioned how I was on the right side of head-to-head between us with Jared Cannonier and who was it? Vittori. But I was on the wrong side of a head-to-head when we went head-to-head on Dalby and
Salikhov. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And bro, like I bet on Salikhov in a lot of fights. I really like him. It's just that now he's getting up there in age, but at the same time, Randy Brown's someone I'm very familiar with. Like one of my biggest bets ever was Randy Brown against Mickey Gall. I put 7 units on it. And he made me sweat that, which is crazy. Like I thought there was no way in hell he could have lost that. And like it was still a sweat. And then he just had a very I thought he clearly won, but it was kind of closer than it needed to be against Wellington Terman too. So Randy's one of those guys where I think he's ultra talented. I think physically speaking, he's got length. I like a lot about him, but sometimes he doesn't fight how you want him to. Sometimes he makes bonehead mistakes. Also a little bit on the chinnier side. So it's tough with him to trust him at this price. It's just, do you buy into the narrative that Salikhov is really just on his way out, slowing down completely? Was that is Dalby's new doctor so damn good that they can't detect what kind of stuff he's on, and that's why he's on this late resurgence? Because Dalby's pace has been just stupid lately.
I think his new doctor is Wim Hof.
I don't know who that is, but I agree.
Wim Hof is this he's this guy who created a breathing technique that I'm pretty sure he's from Europe also. Like he's super into cold exposure and breathing. And if you've noticed, Dalby started implementing a new breathing system during his fights. You can tell it's super pronounced and kind of awkward, but it seems to have been working. His cardio is fucking great now.
Dude, and he was always a dude that would like take a whooping and then come back in that third round. Like, you remember the Darren Till fight? Darren was like schooling him, and in that third round, Dalby whooped his ass so bad that it was a draw. And we're talking about a fight that Dalby got dropped in, and he was able to come back and make that a draw. So like Dalby, he's a dog, man. When he lost to Jesse Ronson tests positive for steroids, and I don't know if you've seen Ronson on his regionals recently. He's back on steroids.
Yeah,
he actually just beat my boy Robert Hill, and it's funny.
I saw that.
Yeah, it really sucks because I told Rob, I was like, listen, man, you can beat this guy, but just know if you're watching his UFC fights expecting that guy to show up, only watch the Dalby fight because this guy will 100% be on steroids. I told him in advance this guy will be on steroids, but we thought it was a good opportunity anyways. UFC vet, you beat him, you're 1 or 2 fights away from Contender Series, and you know you got the fucking hulked up, juiced up Ronson that looks nothing like the guy that fought in the UFC. So it's unfortunate, man. But back to this. So what do you what's your kind of perspective on Salikhov right now? Was Dalby just a bad matchup for him, or going into that, did you kind of think that, okay, this dude really is on his way out and Dalby's catching him at a good time?
Well, I thought that Dalby could cause problems with Salikhov just because we've seen now in a couple of fights that he's slowed down quite a bit, and Salikhov was a big favorite too, so there was a ton of upside in Dalby at that price. So I pretty much just thought that he needed to stay safe early, and then he could wear him down, which he did, and he fought even better than I even predicted. Because that was kind of a beating after round 1.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. But and the thing with Randy Brown is like, you talked about how you were kind of sweating the Mickey Gall bet even. And I don't think there's been a Randy Brown fight where if you bet him, like you weren't sweating at some point, even against like lower level competition. The Turman fight was very close. The Trinaldo fight was crazy close too.
Crazy close.
So I'm not in the business of laying big juice on Randy Brown anymore. I bet him at big juice against your boy, and that was sweaty as hell. Night Train.
Oh yeah, that was a good fight.
Yeah, it was. It was a great fight. And like I was nervous as hell fucking that he was gonna get knocked out the whole fight.
He played around way too much in that fight. I think it's because when he landed that front kick, can you believe Jared ate that front kick?
Oh, yeah, I know, dude. Jared's got a crazy chin.
He does.
But yeah, remember he kept playing with his foot, like he broke his toe or something. Like his body hasn't held up at multiple times now. Very susceptible to the leg kick.
Yes.
But I think all things considered, it's a pretty solid matchup for him because with Muslim style, it's based on speed. And now that he's getting up there in age and he doesn't have great cardio anymore, it's just tough for him to win a lot of fights. He was close to getting knocked out by Andre Fialho when they fought. He did dig deep and ended up winning that one, but we've kind of seen that Fialho is kind of taken too much damage at this point.
Yeah, and Fialho is more of kind of like a pocket brawler, kind of stockier kind of guy.
Yeah.
Randy's long, lanky. And one thing about that, if Randy can figure out how to use his range and his distance, which sometimes he knows how to do it, but what I'm trying to say here is all those spins that Salikhov throws, first of all, they're fast as hell. They're like, they're ridiculously fast. They're so well
but they make him slow down too.
Exactly. That's my point. If Randy can maintain that proper distance and make this guy throw a lot of air balls with those spins, then he will start to slow down. And that's where those long range strikes can come into play. for Randy Brown and kind of edge out like a 29-28 type decision. I'd love to see Randy Brown finally have his breakthrough performance, but I've been saying that since like he made his debut against that Matt Dwyer kid, I believe it was, who was like 6'5" or some shit. Like, I've been waiting for this big performance for so long. Maybe this is the time. We'll see. I'm gonna go.
I don't think I'm gonna get there from a money line perspective.
No.
I was thinking like maybe he can get like a round 2 or round 3 submission.
Oh, true.
Because
front choke or something.
He has a few of them in his career where he kind of wears guys down and is able to get the sub, but it's been a while. And I don't know, I don't think the prices are great on them, but we'll see what other books start to offer. But I don't know. I think Brown should win though.
Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Vivi Araujo. She's 12-5, taking on Natalia Silva, who's 16-5. Currently, they got it. Natalia minus 340. The comeback on Vivi is plus 280. Unfortunately, the odds do suck, but I'm a big Natalia Silva fan, man. I think that she brings the elements to women's MMA that we need: the violence, the excitement. She's also got the look too. So I like everything about her. She's got the personality to go with the fighting style. And then on the other side, Vivi, I used to love Vivi. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm still a fan, but like when she first came into the UFC, you saw that overhand right knockout she had against Talita. I was like, okay, girl.
And I like her. Talita's done some good things recently too. She's not a complete scrub.
Yeah, and just to get like one punch knockouts in women's MMA, you stand out off the bat. I like her footwork. I like her explosiveness. I like her takedowns. I like that she dug deep in that Andrea Lee fight when she got caught and then came back to dominate the fight. So I love me some Vivi. And that was a cool upset she had recently against Maya. So you love to see that she's still in there. But I just kind of think that, there might be a vet lesson time along the way. But something you got to understand with Natalia is that Natalia like paid her dues on a regional. Like Natalia is not one of these fighters that came to the UFC 6-0 and is still super green. Like Natalia's ready to go. Like, isn't she had like yeah, I mean, she's already had over 20 pro fights. So I think that she's already ready to kind of jump right into the top 15 and make some noise. So yeah, I just see her being a little bit quicker to the punch, a little bit more well-rounded. I love her takedown defense. I like on that fight she had against that wrestling girl where she's spinning back kicked her and but she got taken out in round 1. I like that sweep she used. I like everything about this chick. I really do. And I see bright skies for Natalia Silva, and all respect to Vivi. It's just what sucks about Vivi is that she's 37. She's going to turn 38 later this year. It's because she came into the UFC, 33, 34, which is fine. The only issue is that 36, 37 is right around the corner, right? And it comes out of nowhere. So it's unfortunate. But yeah, I think Natalia's catching her at a good time. I just can't do anything with this price. So it's a pass, but Natalia's the pick.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't really think I'm gonna bet this fight at all. It's just it's risky. It's really risky betting huge women's favorites who don't have grappling upside. I mean, I guess potentially she definitely could, but she's shown that she likes to keep it standing, and she's been taken down before. Although like you had mentioned, she does have fantastic takedown defense. She's very athletic, in the prime of her career. So, yeah, I do think it's a very tough matchup for Araujo at this point in her career. We saw what Rebus was able to do to her. She got dropped early. She's been kind of inconsistent in some of her performances. And, she was someone that I like to bet when she's getting a step down in competition, when she's fighting Montana De La Rosa or Roxanne Modafferi, you know what I mean? Those kind of girls, like you can lay some juice on Vivi in those spots. But I mean, I guess I can't fault anyone who's taking the big dog shot because it is a step up. When Natalia Silva made her debut against Jasmine, I compared her to Vivi. Just because I was so impressed with her striking, and it kind of caught me off guard. I didn't see her being that dangerous on the feet, but yeah, her striking is excellent. I don't I'm not looking to fade her right now.
Well, something you got to understand about Natalia is that her last regional fight was in 2019, right? She didn't make her UFC debut until 2022, late 2022. So she literally had all those years to develop her style, hone her skills, you know, iron out the kinks. And that's exactly what she did. Because, like, when I watched her regional tape coming into the Jasmine fight, I was like, I don't know about this, man. And dude, I mean, she's looked incredible. So, yeah. You love to see those kind of developments, improvements in a fighter, and she's made all of them.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Aliaskhab Khizriev. He's 14-0, taking on Makhmud Muradov, who's 26-8. Currently, they got it. Aliaskhab Khizriev -150. The comeback on Makhmud Muradov is +130. So a big line move came in today. A lot of action came in on Muradov. I mean, I get it. Muradov's the more well-known commodity. He's also the dog here. We don't know much about Khizriev, but here's my thing, man. What I do know about Khizriev is that Duke can wrestle his ass off. I know that he's small for the weight class. I know that he could probably drop a weight class, and also on the feet, there might be some sketchy moments. Like you saw that last fight against Chaluan. There was one little sequence where he was kind of running away from him a bit, and I was kind of like, oh, man, but down the line, that's going to come back to bite him in the ass. But the thing is, when this guy commits to his takedowns, he gets them. And my thing with Muradov, so Muradov, you know, he's got like 2 million followers on Instagram. I think
I wonder if it's from his porn star days.
So it's either the porn star days or it's, you know, he's part of
Money Mayweather.
Team. Yeah, he's on the money team. So
yeah.
He was like he's the first, and I think the only, correct me if I'm wrong, but definitely the first MMA fighter to ever be managed by Floyd Mayweather. So like when Floyd's got your backing, I mean, that says something. And the guy's got nasty hands. He's a big athletic guy. The takedown defense has been getting better. That last fight against Barberena, interestingly enough, a lot of people gave him a lot of heat for that fight. You know, I think I put like 5 units on Makhmud in that fight. And let me read you the stats because I disagree with people shitting on that performance. Here's why, bro. All right. Makhmud Muradov landed 2 knockdowns. He landed 13 takedowns. I mean, I don't understand what else.
Yeah, he looked -1,000.
Like when you put 5 units on a guy and he gets 2 knockdowns and 13 takedowns, I mean, I was very happy with that. You know, there have been some performances, you know, the Gerald Meerschaert fight, you know, maybe it was just first L time. Sometimes like Meerschaert has this weird way, like you'll lose to fucking the Ian Heinishes, but then he'll go finish Bruno Silva and Muradov. So from time to time, GM3 is going to surprise you. So I'm not going to hold that against him. Plus, this is a completely different matchup here. And I also think that was a situation too. Like sometimes we talked about this earlier on the show. Sometimes you gas out from whooping on someone. Not that he was whooping GM3 that bad, but there were some early moments in that fight where we thought, oh shit, GM3 just got cracked. And, you know, sometimes when a guy's still standing in front of you after you've cracked him with you know, your hardest shot, that can be discouraging. And especially with Makhmud, who was coming off some devastating knockouts in the UFC, like that fight against Trevor Smith, who, by the way, is a former D1 wrestler. That was a devastating knockout. Sometimes, you know, you start feeling yourself a bit. The Andrew Sanchez knockout was a good one too. So I think he might've been feeling himself, but the Baralho fight is a big talking point. So I bet on Makhmud in that fight, like +180, +185. And it was looking good until it wasn't really. Like what happened was, for some reason, he would attempt takedowns on Caio Borralho. I'm thinking, let's keep this thing standing, right? He's the one attempting takedowns on Borralho. Borralho has this nasty guillotine, and the way to defend the guillotine, if you can't fight the hands, you have to go to your back. That's just the bottom fucking line, or else you're getting choked out, especially with a Damian Maia black belt like Borralho. So he gets in that guillotine attempt, goes to his back, rest of the round is on his back, loses the fight. So it was frustrating, but definitely showed improvements. But the thing about it is, I don't think that Khizriev grapples anything like Borralho, and I don't think Meerschaert grapples anything like the two of them either. I think this is a completely different matchup. I think that, you know, there's less of a submission threat here. Don't get me wrong. There still is a submission threat, but I'm saying there's more of a chaining takedowns, relentless takedown attempt after takedown attempt. And that's what I'd be worried about with Muradov here.
Yeah. So I bet on Muradov too against Caio, and I was happy with the bet. I mean, he was a huge underdog and he made it really close. Some people even scored the fight for him.
Listen, man, I had money on Muradov. We lost that fight.
Yeah, but I don't think it was the worst performance. And then, like you had mentioned, he was going for takedowns. I thought his takedown entries were pretty good. And then you see in the Barberena fight, he went for, double-digit takedowns and got double-digit takedowns. So he's clearly working on his wrestling. He comes from a good wrestling gym. And the thing with this matchup, and why I'm picking Muradov and why I took him a few days ago, maybe last week or something, is just the size difference. Like, you compare Kaio to Khizriev, and Kaio is a way bigger, way more physically strong guy. Like, if you go back and watch Khizriev against Dennis, he's looking flabby. He used to be a 170er. He's going to be way smaller than Muradov. Muradov is way more tested, way more UFC experience, way more experience going 15 minutes, multiple fights where he's shown that he's held his power late in the fights. I think you explained it perfect with the GM3 fight. He chased the finish, had an adrenaline dump, and gassed out. We see it all the time. That doesn't mean he has a bad gas tank. I don't think he's a cardio machine or anything, but there's too many questions on the Khizriev side for me to not take a stab at Muradov at the odds. I got him at plus 165. The odds have come down quite a bit. It's an intriguing fight, though. Would I be surprised if Khizriev was able to get him down multiple times and right out top position and he loses a decision? No. But sometimes you have to take those risks with underdogs because he has upside in the matchup. I think he's the much better striker. Khizriev can be aggressive, but he's there to be hit. And his reactions to getting hit against Dennis were not good. You could tell that he was uncomfortable on the feet. He looked like he was slowing down. And if you look at him on the regional scene where he was fighting at 170, his physique is completely different. Like he was taking steroids and now he's not, or he just doesn't work out as hard as he was then. And, you see his record and he's this undefeated Russian, you think he's this prospect, but then you go and you look at his age and he's 33.
You done?
Yeah. I mean, like I can go back and forth with it, but I don't know do you have any comments on what do you think his upside is?
No, I mean, this thing is upside is chaining takedowns. That's it.
No, as far as trajectory in the division and where his ceiling is.
Too early to say. Too early.
Yeah.
Because
that's kind of why I think you have to take the dog shot on Muradov.
No, I feel you. And I've bet on Muradov in his last. I think I may have bet on him in every single UFC fight. Looking back at it, I definitely bet him against Trevor, Andrew Sanchez, Gerald, Kaio, and Max bet him against Barberena. So I literally bet this guy every fight. Man, I'm just worried, because I know that Khizriev, I know he's fat. I know that on the feet it's kind of ugly to say the least. It ain't the prettiest, but the boy can wrestle, man. He can wrestle relentlessly, and I know Makhmud doesn't like that, and I'm really worried about that.
Recently we saw a fighter from ATT with a lot of hype from Russia with a really nice record like Khizriev and Renato. When he was finally facing adversity deep into a fight, he started to crumble bad and almost got finished by easy. So yeah, I could see something similar happen here, but I'll also acknowledge that it could be one of those really frustrating bets where you're just like, Makhmud, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Stand up.
Yeah.
Or throw something.
No, those piss me off. Sorry, who did you just compare him to?
Renato.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So my only thing with that is Elizio's an established. I know Mahmoud's kind of established, but Elizio's established on a different level. Elizio knocked out Strickland. Elizio knows what it means to have a 7-fight win streak in the UFC, and it's just a different level of experience. No, I respect that example, of course. And I get the concern. It's more about the concern than actually bringing up Elizio's credentials. But yeah, I just don't trust Muradov, man. Because I think he's gonna be taken down consistently. But if he's not, then you're gonna win this bet. So
yeah, and I mean, we did see in the Dennis fight, like I get, it's hard to draw too many conclusions from one fight, right? And that was his UFC debut. So, sometimes people underperform, but he was facing, the one of the worst guys on the roster, especially grappling wise. And Dennis was able to get up. He didn't get completely owned like he did against the Iron Turtle or Gregory Rodriguez. Dennis was able to get up in the first round when he got taken down and was making Khizriev uncomfortable on the feet. And I know Muradov can be a little lazy on bottom, but he did perform a couple of sweeps against Kaio. And, it looked like he wasn't even trying to work his way up. He's got his feet on the mat. It looks like he's just comfortable. I hate when fighters do that. But then all of a sudden he, got into position and pulled a sweep off. I thought it was impressive.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting fight. So I'm looking forward to it, man. I really am. And you mentioned a good point about sometimes these guys come back looking a little bit better in their sophomore appearances. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm leaning with Khizriev, but you and a lot of people I respect took Muradov, and I historically take Muradov, but I don't know. I just don't trust him against a dude that I know is going to attempt takedown after takedown. I actually laid the -315 on Khizriev against Chiluan.
Yeah, that was solid money. Dennis is just the worst to ever do it.
Man, it's too bad he's gone.
I know, right? I'm sure he'll fill in again on short notice.
What I know Christian Leroy Duncan finished him.
Yeah.
But I literally don't remember what happened in that fight because we've seen so many fights since then. What did he get him with? Do you remember?
He knocked him out.
Okay, yeah. All right. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got a match between Gilbert Urbina. He's 7-2, taking on Charles Radtke, who is 8-3. Currently, they got it. Gilbert, holy shit. Gilbert Urbina -200. The comeback on Charles Radtke +170. Real quick, before I talk about these odds, that they got Charles Radtke listed at 5'9"?
Yeah, I know. I saw that. And it seems to be like a big talking point with people when they cap this fight is they think that and I've actually I went back and looked and his CFFC stuff had him at 5'10", but he looks bigger than 5'10" to me.
He's at least 6 feet tall, first of all. And I'm glad you brought that up because do you remember Jake Ellenberger from a few years ago? So Jake Ellenberger, when he made his UFC debut against Carlos Condit, he was listed at 6 feet tall. Mm-hmm. Then a few fights later, he's listed at 5'10". Then he's listed at 5'8". Bro, he went from 6 feet to 5'8". So this is just a case where they just got it wrong. The dude is not 5'9". We saw a picture of him standing next to Bilal. Bilal is like right on the cusp of 6 feet. Charles was taller. Mm-hmm. And Michael Morales is like 6'2", and Radtke was not that much smaller. So 5'9" my ass, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So this whole size advantage bullshit. Yeah. Is Urbina going to be the longer, lankier guy? Sure. We're not going to look you in the face and lie. Yes, he will be the longer, lankier guy, but to act like this is, what was that fight? That like Sean Woodson versus Jordan, where he's got like a 10-inch reach advantage.
Yeah.
And it ain't any of that shit at all. And let me just say this, and I mean this in the most respectful way possible. Here comes the disrespect. I thought the Urbina brothers are some of the worst brother tandems in MMA. I don't mean as people. I don't know them as people. I just mean as fighters. Do you remember Hector Urbina, bro?
Yeah, they didn't have any success,
dude. And this might be the best one. And Trayshawn Gore was knocking him around all over the place. What was that other fight that he got smoking? Yeah, Battle. And then, he beat a Kosei brother. It's like we got the fraud Urbina brothers, and then we got the fraud Kosei brothers.
Right.
He beat one of the fraud brothers. Now he's a -200 favorite in a UFC fight. I get it. Charles Radtke is not that impressive, But Charles Radtke's like one of those like workman kind of physical guys. I've seen him get dropped. I've seen him get hurt, but I've also seen him drop people. I've also seen him hurt people. I've seen him submit people. And he's just kind of like one of those guys that's going to push. So, you know, maybe the early kind of danger factor can go to Urbina, but this whole like he's going to dwarf him bullshit is just that bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a dogger pass situation. Like it seems like you're alluding to also. I think, let me ask you this. You're good friends with Bilal, right?
We're friendly. I mean,
Yeah.
you know.
Have you talked to him about this Radtke kid? How long has he been training with Valley Flow?
Good question. I mean, I can text him and ask him.
No, I mean, I guess that's only if you're going to be placing a bet, but I think there's some upside with the dog in this matchup. You know, he comes from a solid camp. You see he's training with Ignacio Bahamondes, a very lanky striker, and he's training with Bilal, you know, one of the most well-rounded guys in the UFC. Both those guys have excellent conditioning. So I do.
Michael Morales, don't forget that.
I didn't know. Yeah, I saw Morales is new to the. I didn't know how long he had been there, because usually he's an Entrom guy, but Morales.
I asked Bilal about Michael though, because you know it's fucking Michael Morales, and like you know a lot of people think that he's gonna be. I'll tell you exactly what Bilal said about that. So I said, "How is this kid in person? Seems like a freak athlete on TV." And he says, "Yeah, I like him. He's huge and he's super talented."
Yeah,
so that's exactly what we thought.
Yeah, exactly. He's a solid prospect. But yeah, we've seen in multiple fights now from Urbina that, you know, I'm not gonna say he's wilty, but he doesn't take a punch great. I'll say that. He's been dropped multiple times. And I didn't like the look against Brian Battle. I thought both of them looked really bad.
Battle will be faded soon, and I cannot fucking wait.
Yeah, and especially they were at 185, and people want to say, you know, it doesn't count because it was at 185. Battle looked terrible. He looked very out of shape, and you know, everyone rocked him early in fights. And my whole thing was, it was just the smallest grappling sequence that led to Battle getting Urbina's back, and he put that choke in, and Urbina didn't fight the hands at all. You know, Battle got the rear naked choke immediately. And I know Radtke didn't have a great UFC debut, but he flew across the world. He was in Australia. From what I gather, he had a tough weight cut. But the guy's a black belt. He has a lot of grappling experience. If you Google and look into his grappling credentials, so you know he's got a really nice rear naked choke that he got the CFFC belt with. So I do think that he could potentially cause some problems for Urbina on the mat. Both of them have cardio issues. Both of them are kind of at the points in their career where they've only had 8 or 9 fights. So there's definitely room for improvement. And Urbina's younger. So people, and, you know, even I assume he should be improving. Yes. But I also think Radtke will be improving also at this stage in his career. I think a lot of his MMA, well, I'll just say a lot of his MMA career early was just grappling tournaments. Now that he's like finally rounding into fighting in MMA under MMA rules, I think he has room to grow in controlling his cardio and getting takedowns. And so I think he's going to be the better grappler personally. I think he has submission upside. I think he has KO upside. Urbina seemed to be fragile, and Radtke has too. He's not like a perfect, you know, matchup for him, but you're getting plus 180, plus 175, you know. I think it should be closer to almost like a pick'em, maybe plus 120, plus 125 Radtke, but
So
yeah.
you do favor Urbina?
Maybe slightly, just because of, he's so much younger, and Radtke definitely has holes in his game. He's very hittable himself, so just being, I think on the safe side, I would be okay giving Urbina a slight favorite.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, at these odds, it has to be Radtke. I just can't picture myself laying 200 on Urbina versus anybody on the roster, unless it was like they brought back Mike Jackson or some shit, yeah, I mean, I think you covered it well. There is a danger factor with Urbina. He's one of those lanky guys. He takes your back. It could be dangerous. Also, he can catch you with something you don't see coming because of the distance and range he has. So, yeah, and he's young, so he's improving, but so is Radtke. And I'm so happy you brought up the fact that that fight against Blood Diamond, he had him fucking travel a 24-hour flight. He had a fight at 6 a.m. Like, bro, like, come on. Like,
and it's his UFC debut.
Yeah. And
in enemy territory also.
And a post-fight speech to go along with it, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a pick Radtke here. So next up in the strawweight division, we got a rematch between Molly McCann. She's 13-6, taking on Diana Belbita, who's 15-8. Currently, they got it Molly McCann minus 280. The comeback on Diana Belbita is plus 240. The first time they fought, Molly McCann won, I think, 30-25. She got 10 sevens in round 2. However, Deanna impressed a lot of people with the amount of volume she was able to put out. And Deanna might not be the most well-rounded fighter in the world, but she's decently tough standing and can, put out some good output, some good volume. I think that's about the extent of it. Molly McCann, we know what she is. I think she's a finished product. Kind of basic boxing for MMA. We'll mix in, good entries to those blast doubles. I love that fight she had against Lipsky. That was a beautiful performance. Those last two against Stoliarenko and Blanchfield, I think Stoliarenko was just entirely too big for her, and then Blanchfield was just too skilled for her. This is a different matchup. There's zero grappling threat from the side of Belbita. I say that just like when I said that, well, we can discount the fact that Jiri's not going to tap out Glover, right? And then Jiri taps out Glover. So
MMA's a crazy sport, bro.
It's insane. So, like I'm saying right now, I don't think Belbita has any grappling upside. But she's fighting an opponent that got submitted twice in the first round, her last 2 fights. Granted, Blanchfield, black belt, 1 fight away from a title. Stoliarenko, not the best, but way bigger, like way bigger. So it is what it is. I think Molly should just get it with her well-rounded skill set. It's just, do you want to lay a price like this? No, I don't. But the pick is Molly.
Yeah, just right off the bat, with her coming down to a new division, she's coming down to 115 for the first time. She's late in her career. Obviously, I'm not going to lay juice on her at this price. That's crazy. And Belbita is the bigger girl, the younger girl. She can throw volume. She can hang with Molly on the feet. So I'm definitely not going to lay the juice. But I also don't want to take a shot on Belbita personally. She just has such little upside in these fights. Like she can never pull away in fights.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
They have to match her up very special in order for her to get her decision win. I bet on her against Maria Oliveira, and she was able to get that done. But that's just a different kind of tier of fighter than Molly McCann. Molly McCann's beaten higher tier fighters than that. So, yeah, I think Molly should win, but I'm not going to lay the juice.
Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a match between Charles Johnson. He's 13-6, taking on Azat Maksum, who's 17-0. Currently, they got it. Well, it just depends where you look. Like on Bet Online, it's minus 210 Azat, but if you look at like Caesars, it's still minus 190. So it just depends where you look. Come back on Charles is everywhere from plus 160 to plus 180. Listen, man, to quote Eddie Alvarez, remember when Eddie Alvarez fought Anthony Pettis and he said, if you have aspirations of being a top 10 UFC lightweight and you haven't figured out how to beat Anthony Pettis yet, there's a big problem. And let me tell you something right now, Pepe. If you have aspirations of being a top 15 flyweight and you haven't figured out how to beat Charles Johnson yet, there's a big fucking problem. Here's the thing, man. This kid Azat on his regionals showed me a lot of things I liked. Obviously, his wrestling style is nasty. Doesn't always go to it, but when he does, man, I mean, those suplexes he hit on Nam at the end of that third round, I was like, yo, like, why don't we just do that a little bit earlier? But granted, Nam had never been taken down in a UFC fight until that fight. And then you watch his regional fights. I've seen him go out there, submit black belts with dar strokes, like real black belts, not like some 40-year-old black belt. Like we're going to talk about this kid coming up, Jung Lee, I believe it is.
Yeah.
And he fought that like 40-year-old like Brazilian. That's the only non-Asian he's fought. Like, yeah, we're not talking about a situation like that. Like this Azat kid like fought like a real like legit black belt Brazilian, submitted him with a darce. I've seen him knock guys out with one punch. I've seen him grind out the decisions. And in the fight with Nam, people saying that was a robbery. Look, did he cover his minus 400 price tag? Absolutely not. But to call that a robbery is asinine. Firstly, I love stats, but when you look at the stats, this is one of those occasions where I truly believe the stats counters were wrong. There is no way in hell you can watch that fight and tell me that Tyson Nam doubled up Azat on strikes. That is just complete bullshit. You watch that fight, the first 2 rounds, I mean, Azat closed the eye of Tyson Nam. Azat wobbled Tyson Nam. It's just, I want a little bit more. I want a little bit more output. That's all I want from this kid. Mixing the takedowns a little sooner. But granted, you can chalk it down to a UFC debut. Maybe he felt the jitters, whatnot. I expect a better performance here. Plus, I think that Tyson Nam, he might not win every fight, but he's a tough out. He's a tricky fighter. Like, dude was out there in Russia, like knocking out Ali Bagautinov. And like back in the day when he knocked out the Bellator champ Eduardo Dantas, like Tyson Nam is a dangerous. I thought Tyson Nam beat Kai Kara France. Controversial opinion, but I stick with that one. But here, I think it's a different matchup with Charles Johnson. Here's the thing with Johnson. I actually think Johnson is a skilled fighter everywhere. I think Johnson's got good hands. I think he's got good cardio. I think he's got good takedown defense. I think he's got good get-up game. I just think that he's got probably the worst fight IQ I've ever seen in my life, the worst urgency I've ever seen. He can get out-hustled badly. And once you know, he's going to stuff those first few, get up from those first few, but once you just show him that, hey, man, I'm going to keep trying, then he gets a little discouraged. Then it takes him a little longer to get back up. And then you start to hear his corner really dig into him. You start to see that discouraged look on his face. And coming into the UFC, you know, this guy was an LFA champ, man. That first fight he had against Mokaev, okay, we'll give him a pass. Even though Mokaev set the record for most takedowns in flyweight history against him with 12. And then my boy Cody set the record for the second most takedowns in flyweight history against him with 11. Shout out to them. I was kind of like, okay, Mokaev, that's a tough debut. Plus, he was a plus 400 dog. Give him a pass. Knocks out Jimmy Flick, has that fight with Zalgas, which I'm like one of the only people that thought Charles won that fight, but it was so close that it's like, dude, like too close for comfort, right? And then the fight with O'Day, that's the fight that really pissed me off, because I thought that was such a winnable matchup. O'Day was gassing out bad, and Charles Johnson, who's known, wasn't he like some like high level track and field athlete?
Yes.
Like, bro, I thought with his cardio, that third round, he was really going to take over. He's the one slowing down. Granted, he took down short notice. We'll give him a pass. Then he fights my boy Cody, and he talked insane amounts of shit about, he talked some ridiculous shit about Cody, and then Cody 30-27s him easily. And instead of this dude being like, you know what, I'm going to take some time off, what is it? Nip it in the butt, the problems he has in his game. Like Cody told me that they talked backstage, and Cody gave him a piece of advice. Like, hey bro, just take 6 months to really work on your game a little bit. Come back when you're ready, do your thing. There's no reason to rush it. You know what Charles Johnson told Cody? He's like, fuck that. I'm getting back in there like next month. Like, so, Pepe, that these fighters make the most improvements when they have time between fights to develop. Like, okay, if we're talking about a guy like Strickland or whatever, he's already fully developed. So he can take these short notice fights. And we're talking about a championship caliber guy, what balls that man has, right? But with Charles Johnson, when that career's on the line and it's like, bro, like we need to take time to really, work on this problem we have. And the guy's like, fuck that, I want to fight. All right, you want to fight? Well, we saw what happened against Estevam. Him and his team clearly watched the footage. They didn't even want to strike one bit. They're like, fuck it. We're going to shoot on this guy's leg, take his back. And first 2 rounds went his way. Third round, he gassed out. It was what it was. Too little, too late. Charles Johnson still doesn't have that urgency. Like, he clearly won that third round, but he didn't have.
He couldn't finish him.
He couldn't 10-8 him. He couldn't finish him. He couldn't just really put the stamp on things, right? So here against Azat, people only think of Azat as like, just a Kazakh wrestler or whatnot. He can strike too, bro. And I like some of his combinations. I like how he'll throw like a knee, and on that same side, he'll follow it up with a same side punch, kind of like some stuff that Carlos Condit used to do back in the day. Only thing from Azat is I want a little bit more volume. That's the only thing. Just give me a little bit more volume. But here, if you and your team did your research, bro, like I said, if you have aspirations of being a top 15 flyweight and you haven't figured out how to beat Charles Johnson yet, there's a big issue. So I'm considering laying it here. What my concern is? My concern is that low output. But with the IQ of Johnson, I don't know if he's a smart guy out the cage, but in the cage, he's dumb as rocks. So I think he's going to find a way to lose again. So I'm going Azat probably by decision.
Yeah. Well, I think, you told that story about Cody Durden and him telling him that he needs to take some time off to develop his skill set and figure out what he needs to do differently in these fights to dictate pace. And I think the reason why he might not be willing to do that is because of how old he is.
How old is
he? Johnson's in his mid-30s, isn't he?
Let's see. I mean, he's not that old, right? He's like what? 30?
I mean, the expiration date on flyweights is,
true.
He's
getting there. You're right. He's getting there.
And I think he knows he needs to capitalize now, but
dude, Davison went from like that third Moreno fight looked incredible to that fourth Moreno fight was like, whoa, what the fuck?
Right.
So you're right.
Those weight cuts get, more and more difficult the older you get to make 125, a division that's based on speed. So that being said, I'm not going to get involved with this fight. I want nothing to do with it. I'm one of those fools that had Charles round 3 against Estevam. So, like you said, Charles talks a lot. He was talking mad shit to Cody. That's all he does is talk. And I think his biggest problem, one of his biggest problems is he lets his opponents dictate the pace. And like you had said, you'll hear his corner screaming, oh, what the fuck are you doing? Throw, come on. And I noticed that even in the LFA fight where he beat the Asian kid who trains out of Team Oinama, Yumi, I think his name is Horiguchi, or not Horiguchi. Sorry. It was a 5-round LFA fight. And it was the same
Yuma Horiuchi.
Okay, yeah. It was the same problems that he's had in all his other fights where he's letting Yuma dictate the pace and he's not putting volume on him even though he has good cardio. And the only reason he won that fight was because Yuma lost a point for a groin strike. But it was just one of those things where it's like, why aren't you throwing volume? Like he gets discouraged very easy and he lets his opponents dictate the pace. And that's just a recipe for disaster if you're not implementing your own game. And if you're the one with great cardio, but you're not pacing the fighter, what kind of upside can you really have in a matchup? So I'm not getting involved with this fight. I'll pick the Kazakh guy to win. Like you said, he showed good grappling on the regional scene. He's very well rounded, and like you alluded to, Tyson Nam has great takedown defense. He still attempted 13 takedowns, but I think Nam was a harder matchup for him than Charles Johnson is. And he's still in the prime of his career. That was his UFC debut. He's taken time off between fights to develop his skills and to become a better fighter. Charles is taking another fight on short notice. I mean,
I hope the paycheck's worth it.
Yeah, exactly. I think he has other aspirations, to be quite honest.
Well, is he? You think he's trying to go into acting, do the whole bit?
Yeah, like I know he was trying to make music and shit like that, and you know, he's always talking about entrepreneurial things, which is, you know, no knock on that. You know, he's trying to get his hustle on.
Yeah.
But I think he knows that, you know, the time is now. If he can't make it happen, he needs to have his eggs in other baskets too. You know, like I said, he's getting up there in age. He's 2-4 in the UFC, you know.
Yeah. Man, from one bald man to another, like shave that fucking thing off the back of your
I know,
head.
that's just obnoxious.
I think, like, you know, the biggest problem is not him not taking time off. It's him not shaving that goddamn thing. Like, bro, if I walked in downtown Atlanta with a thing like that on the back of my head, like, I don't think I'd make it home to make this.
Yeah, podcast. You might get stabbed.
So next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Themba Gorimbo. He's 11-4, taking on Pete Rodriguez, who's 5-1. Currently, they got it. Themba -250. The comeback on Pete is +210. Listen, when you get that endorsement by The Rock, you get matchups like this. Now, check this out, because this is not his original matchup. You know what his original matchup was? Kiefer Crosby. So they're like, all right, you got The Rock endorsement. We respect that. So we're going to literally go to the bottom. I'm talking the fucking bottom. They tried at first with the bottom with, what's the kid that submitted him?
AJ.
Fletcher? Yeah, Fletcher. Okay. But we got to go below that. So we're going to go to Kiefer Crosby, was like a YouTube boxer, you know, get Themba a win. He pulls out. All right, who's the next on paper worst guy? Pete Rodriguez. But here's the thing. Pete can actually crack. That's the interesting part. But Pete hasn't fought anything except Jack. And Jack, obviously, I mean, Jack's about to fight a top 5 matchup. So, you know, I don't hold it against him. And Themba cannot strike like that. So what I want to say about Themba, and I want to be as respectful as possible because his story is obviously incredible. I'm rooting for him just on a human level. I want to see him get that well pumping in his village in Africa. And I love the story with The Rock and so inspirational. So, bro, man to man, much respect. But now let's not talk man to man. Now let's talk about the fighter himself. And I just don't want to come off as a dick saying this, but when I compare him to the other African fighters, I truly believe he's kind of like the runt of the litter. You look at Francis Ngannou. You look at Dricus du Plessis. You look at Sodiq Yusuff. You look at Israel Adesanya. You look at, I don't know, name me some more African. Onama. Razak Al-Hassan, for example. Who you got between Razak and Themba? I think Razak knocks him out in 1, but I digress. I just think that, yeah, this guy, his regional scene was not impressive. I will give him credit. That last fight against Takashi, I know Takashi's on his way out, clearly. But it was cool to see him go out there and dominate a fight. Yeah. Is he super green? Were there things that needed to be patched up? Maybe a lot of people are talking about his rear naked choke offense. Okay. You know, maybe give credit to Takashi for his defense. You know, the only guy I think only Bilal choked him out in the UFC. Is that right? Or did someone else?
Yeah, he hit him with the triangle, right? Or arm triangle, right?
Yeah, Baeza arm triangle. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Baeza's a black belt too, just no chin. But he's coming back too. Who's he fighting again? Baeza. He's got a good one.
Oh, I didn't know Baeza was fighting again.
Yeah, unless he pulled out, but he had like a good matchup coming up, like a really fun one.
I mean, all his fights are fun.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out who it is.
Oh, no, he doesn't. The last one he had booked was Jake Matthews in July. It got canceled.
Oh, I thought he would have got back on track there.
You never know with Baeza, right?
Does Jake Matthews have a fight coming up?
Yeah, and Baeza withdrew from that.
Damn.
Matthews does not.
Okay. Anyways, back to this. So Themba and Pete. Pete seems like a club brawler. I get it. He trains at the lab, but the guy's only 5-1. He's super green. I mean, if you stand in the pocket with him, then he's got a chance. But like, if you just mix it up a little bit, stand on the outside, circle. When it's time to mix in the takedowns, you mix in the takedowns, and then he can grind him out, possibly submit him. It's just there's a lot of unknowns about Pete Rodriguez. I really like, he's 5-1. I don't know shit about him except that he likes to brawl in the pocket, so he's exciting. But yeah, I don't know much about the depth of his game. He's a bit too green for me, so I'm gonna pick Themba, but I'm not gonna lay a price like this on Themba at all, ever.
Yeah, hell no. I would never lay juice on Themba. Like, all respect to him, just yeah, and he's like minus 250. That's crazy. When I was researching his fight with Fletcher, I had no idea who he was, and after taping him, I labeled him as a fade, and I max bet Fletcher against him. And I mean, that was kind of sweaty, but Fletcher ended up getting it done. There was just a few circumstances that pointed me to being very confident in Fletcher winning that fight. It was like, it was on his birthday. I thought he was going to have multiple ways to win the fight. So I haven't, and then, Themba was like a pick'em with Takashi Sato, and he did what he needed to do to win the fight, but he definitely showed the holes in his game and, the sloppiness and his grappling. But, like you alluded to, we don't know if Rodriguez has made any improvements in his grappling. Like I would hope that he had, working at the lab. I don't know how serious he's taking it. He came in super overweight last time he had a fight booked. But I've been impressed with his
in fairness, that was 55 to 70.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But
still unprofessional, nonetheless.
Yeah, and he came in way overweight. But I'm impressed with his striking in round one. I just don't know what his takedown defense is going to look like, and we know Themba is going to. Well, he should. If he doesn't. I think if he doesn't proactively grapple early in the fight, he's going to get knocked out. I like Pete's boxing quite a bit while he's fresh. His body work is really nice. He was touching Jack up. But yeah, like we just don't have enough information on him. So yeah, I don't have any really way to play this fight. I don't know. I'm not gonna. I guess what I could do is take an under 1.5. I'll have to consider that a little more.
Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Blake Bilder. He's 8-1-1, taking on Zhang Li, who's 10-1. Currently, they got it. Zhang Li minus 145. The comeback on Bilder is plus 125. Man, okay. Another one where I need to be respectful because, like, bro, the way people were hyping up this Zhang Li kid, I was like, okay, I can't wait to watch tape on this guy. And then when I watched him, I was like, oh, it's a poor man's Doo Ho Choi. Literally looks like Doo Ho Choi. And I know when I say that, someone's going to be like, are you trying to say they all look the same? No, I did not say he looked like Chan Sung Jung. Yeah. I said he looked like Doo Ho Choi. You know why? Because he does look like Doo Ho Choi, and he fights like him too. So this is basically another Doo Ho Choi coming into the UFC. Look, he's exciting. He can crack, but let's be realistic about the competition he's fought, bro. The only non-Asian he's fought is a 40-year-old Brazilian. That was sad to watch, and nothing against the Asian fighters, but let's call a spade a spade. The Asian men aren't, I mean, who's the last Asian male champion? Don't give me no Peter Yan. I'm not talking about Russia or Kazakhstan. You guys, come on now.
Yeah, the next one is Shavkat.
Yeah, look. But the women in Asia, I mean, Zhao Nan and Wei Li, they stood out off the bat. Like they're
anomalies also.
Yeah, those are some champs right there. But anyways, basically what I'm trying to say is that this guy has fought nothing. The best guy he's fought is a dude that had leopard print hair. And that dude with leopard hair was having moments against this guy. It's just that Lee had the more damage, and they favor damage a lot. So you like to see that. But people saying Lee's about to be a star and shit, he's not. And again, I don't want to be that guy that diminishes someone's dreams or is negative about someone's aspirations. I don't mean it like that, but this is a prediction show, so I just have to be frank about it. I think this kid is the issue is that this is an entry level fight. Blake Bilder is an entry level opponent, so he could get past this one. But I also think there's a chance, man, that Blake Bilder can come out here, stand on the outside a little bit, mix in some takedowns, and kind of weasel this guy. Like, Blake Bilder's got those weasel qualities. Like, I know Blake Bilder got dropped in a lot of his regional fights, but he came back to win all those fights. And he's one of those guys where, like, it doesn't look the prettiest. He's never, you're probably not going to see him on an ESPN top 10 highlight reel or any shit like that. But he's just that, like, gritty workman. He's not a journeyman yet because he's 8-1, but down the line he will be one of those journeymen. You win some, you lose some, but look like a Brian Kelleher type, just with a little more physicality, right? So, man, I mean, I think that if he doesn't get starched, I think that he can be the one that's coming out here, being a little bit more physical, taking down Lee, accumulating top control and grinding him out. Like, I don't know if Lee's ready for the UFC. Maybe he gets past this because this is, like I said, this is an entry-level fight. But, bro, the hype on Lee is ludicrous. It's insane. Like, just stop it. You know what I'm saying? And do you agree with my Doo Ho Choi comparison by chance?
Yeah, and you know who else he kind of reminds me of? Who is the Choi who fought Zalal and Trezano? He had the double knockdown with Trezano. Who?
Sungwoo Choi.
Yeah. His fighting style reminds me of him also, where he's a power striker with bad striking defense, but he seems to have some pop in his hands. But you always got to worry about him getting taken down and getting grappled. And I think a lot of what this fight comes down to, and whether you think there's value on the line or not, is how you rate Yi Za in his last fight. Because I know some people rate Yi Za as like a relentless, good grappler. Well, I agree. He's going to shoot a lot of takedowns. He's got great cardio. I think he lacks physicality, and I think Bilder will be more physical than Yi Za is, and I think Bilder can be potentially more opportunistic with submissions. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to, take his back early in round one and get like a standing rear naked choke, and make it look kind of easy. So I think I kind of like the under in this fight, actually, rather than taking a side, because, we've seen Bilder get rocked in multiple fights. Both of them have bad striking defense. They're both there to be hit. In kind of a volatile matchup, I think the under makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, dude, Yi Za, I know how bad everything I'm saying sounds, but, like, bro, he's got the fakest 22-4 record I've ever seen in all my years watching the sport. Like, I think let me pull this up just to give you an example.
I think a lot of people are just fading Bilder,
yeah, but here's the thing. Okay, if you have aspirations of being a top 15 guy and you lost to Kyle Nelson, yeah, huge red flag. But for an entry-level UFC fight, it's not a big deal. This is an entry-level UFC fight. This is not, some guy that, like, we're not talking about dudes on the cusp of the top 30. This is entry-level shit. All right, so this dude, Yi Za, right? This dude, listen to this, man. He was 16-2. And he fought a 4-7 guy. He was 17-2, and he fought a 2-2 guy. He was 18-2, and he fought an 11-10 guy. And then he gets knocked out in 11 seconds by a 24-11 guy. Like, bro, don't give me no, like, people are saying that Yi Za is gonna be in the UFC and do all these things, maybe because he's on the road, the UFC, that whole thing. But, like, bro, it ain't gonna last more than a couple fights. I'll tell you.
And another narrative point, I think, is that they were supposed to have, I don't know if they're still doing it or not, the Road to UFC connected with this card. And on this card, I don't know if that got canceled or it got moved. So it kind of looked like from a promotion standpoint, they're kind of looking to push this younger Asian fighter on the road to the UFC card, kind of give him a setup spot against Bilder. But, as we've seen multiple times now, what the UFC wants and who they're trying to push doesn't always happen. Just ask Mike Malott.
Just as Japanese Connor, bro. Look,
Yeah.
Japanese Connor had way more impressive finishes than Lee did on his regional. Like, Japanese Connor was like, yo, like he was killing dudes on his regional. And then his Contender Series fight, he got tested. He went 3 hard with like a big Brazilian. Like, we were like, okay. Dana's like, I can't wait to see both these guys. And then just comes to the UFC and like gets embarrassed by 2 guys that won't be in the UFC this time next year. So,
right.
And then, like you said, Sungwoo Choi, and I'm not trying to generalize or anything, but just overall, the Asian males haven't quite been up to par. I love the Asian women though, man. Shout out to the future champ Yan Xiaonan, but yeah, man, I'm not high on Lee at all. He could starch Bilder. Bilder's been dropped. Bilder's been rocked in a lot of fights, but I think Bilder's more physical. I think Bilder can get those opportunistic takedowns. I'm sure Bilder learned from that fight against Kyle Nelson. Like I said, Kyle Nelson, okay, if you want to get into the top 15 and you can't beat him, okay, that's a problem. But for an entry-level fight, who gives a shit, man? Like Kyle Nelson.
Kyle Nelson is strong as fuck for the division too. He's fucking huge.
Bro, Kyle Nelson's probably ranked like number 50 in the world. I'm wrong. He's ranked number 42 in the world, right? Okay, yeah. 42 in the world. Like, well, now we're talking about guys ranked 90 and 100. Like, it's just a different caliber. So we can go on forever about this, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Blake Bilder for the upset in the spot. Next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Julija Stoliarenko. She's 11-7, taking on Luana Carolina, who's 9-4. Currently, they got it. Julija -130. The comeback on Luana is +115. This one seems binary as hell. I mean, I know it's easy to say that Julia's first round armbar or bust, but like, I think she kind of is for the most part. I know she's had moments in some other rounds, but like most of her success is predicated on that damn armbar. And boy, does she have a good one. She really does. I got to give her credit for that. But I do think that she is a front runner. I do think that she will fold down the stretch in fights. The only issue is that with Carolina, she's not that physical. I do like that she can put out volume. I do like that she can fight 3 rounds. And I do expect if she can survive these early submission attempts that she can, maybe outpoint her down the stretch. It's just big if, right? Big if.
Yeah, I don't have any interest in this fight as far as like betting. I think it's pretty close to accurate. Like you said, it's a pretty binary fight. Maybe I would give a slight edge to Stoliarenko, just like the odds are. So they're probably pretty close to accurate. Like she's got all the finishing upside early. She has the grappling upside. But yeah, we've seen her melt. And, the only fight that we've seen her at 125 at only lasted 3 minutes. So we're not going to really know how her cardio is at this division. She did fight decent against Avila. She had her moments on the feet. So I'm not going to say she can't win a decision because, Carolina isn't very imposing with her game. She's kind of low volume herself and, she gives rounds up very easily too. So yeah, I think they're both like pretty even tiered fighters and it's lined correct.
Who's your pick?
I'll go Stoliarenko.
All right. I'm gonna go Carolina, but contingent on not getting armbarred in round 1. Next up in the lightweight division, we got Marquel Mederos. He's 8-1, making his debut, taking on Landon Quinones, who's 7-2-1. Currently, they got it. Holy shit, dude. A lot of action came in on Landon, huh? Marquel -125. The comeback on Landon +110. Interesting. Were you part of this movement on Landon?
Yeah, I'm in on Landon early at like +160, +164. So yeah, it's a different discussion when the odds shift this much, right?
Right. It
is because now it's almost a pick'em fight.
And how do you line it personally?
I would probably give Mederos like -125, -130. And the reason why I give him like a slight favorite is because I do think he is the one who's more likely to have grappling success in this fight. But the reason why I played Landon at plus 160 is because I think it's going to be very even on the feet. And I think Marquel can be very low volume if you go back and watch his fights where he's striking the whole time. This is his UFC debut, whereas Landon already made his UFC debut, flew across the world, and fought a very tough opponent in Nasrat Hakprast. The dude's got a hell of a chin. I think he's more comfortable getting hit than Mederos. Mederos kind of seems to, it seems like you can disrupt his game on the feet very easily. He's very tentative. I don't think he likes getting hit. And I think Landon has a lot more durability on the feet. I think his volume is pretty good. His leg kicks are good. I think the striking can be very even. So, yeah, I thought plus 160 was a solid spot for Landon.
Interesting. Yeah, Landon, shout out to him. He actually beat my boy Yemi Oduwale.
Oh, yeah, I forgot Yemi.
Yeah. It was a weird fight until he caught Yemi. They actually stayed in touch. They're like boys now. But
nice.
Yeah, Yemi's a beast, bro. It's just I think that he's like a big like Nigerian dude, like right, and he cuts to 55. I'm like, bro, maybe you should go to 70. But then that last fight, he beat that like undefeated. I think it was a CES champion. Like he got him by Peruvian necktie. So like maybe he should stay at 55. I don't know, but yeah, no, props to Landon. And then also Landon, like on Ultimate Fighter, he got submitted in like under a minute by Jason Knight. But then he has that fight with Nasrat where, man, he put up the kind of numbers we love. That was a great fight. But I want to make one of your points here, my man. You always talk about how we should not overrate a loss, right? Does Pepe not always talk about that? And let me give you a further example. Do you remember when, what's the name of the Mexican dude that fought Hakprast also?
Rafa Garcia.
Yes. Remember when Rafa Garcia fought Nasrat? He looked good against Nasrat. So then his next fight's against Chris Gritzmacher. I'm thinking, oh, bro, the way he just fucking performed admirably against Nasrat, he's going to kill Gritzmacher. And then Gritzmacher
he almost did, though. That was kind of another performance like Muradov, where he went for the kill and had the adrenaline dump and then was fucking gassed.
Yeah. No, but there's more examples. You like to use this point a lot.
Well, because the market always like overreacts all the time. And, that's usually when you get the best price on guys is when they're coming off a loss.
But is the market overreacting now with this big line move?
We'll see Saturday.
Yeah. So the way I kind of see it is I think Landon, I've heard some of his interviews, and he's actually like a dude that watches an insane amount of tape. He seems super cerebral. So I like him. The issues I have is like, okay, his toughness is great and he'll throw volume, but like, I think people don't put enough emphasis on the ass whooping he took in that second and third round against Hakprast. I thought, the first half of the fight was close, but then after that, it got kind of brutal at points. And I think that people kind of forget that because of how much heart he showed, or, the fact that he was such a big underdog and he overperformed. So people are putting a lot of stock into that. Well, don't get me wrong, it was a great fight. It was a hell of a fight, of course, but he definitely slowed down. He definitely took a lot of damage, especially a bunch of head strikes. The thing with Mederos, like you said, a little bit on the lower volume side, but man, he's a physical dude. He's athletic as hell. I like the fact that the whole Factory X thing, it's not about that he trains there. It's about that he's got kind of like that stance switching style, kind of that pretty striking, good takedown defense that those guys are kind of known for besides Royval, no, I like him. It's just, again, making your UFC debut. How many times have we seen dudes look amazing on Contender Series, then come in there, shit the bed in the debut? But this is, I think, a good matchup for him. I think he's a little bit too physical for this guy. Like, how do you see it going down? Like, do you see like Landon just like out voluming him or like hurting him or like what?
Oh yeah, I think he can out volume and hurt him quite easily. Yeah. I mean, Mederos he's very careful on the feet, so he tries to avoid getting hit quite a bit.
Right.
whereas Landon will, take one to give one. But I think that kind of style kind of gives people like that problems when they're just in your face, constantly throwing. My biggest concern for this fight is that Mederos will take him down and be able to hold him down. But I've also seen where Mederos has been able to get reversed, give up position to really poor regional fighters. Who's his best win?
The Russian probably, but I mean, and the
Yeah,
other guy's best
exactly.
win is my boy Yemi. So it is what it is. But so I guess what you're saying is that you look at Mederos as more like the pretty fighter taking on the pressure guy who's just going to get in your face, make you fight, not let you have that distance, not let you set up your, beautiful strikes and, and kind of finesse you a bit. And I
Yeah.
agree that could happen. But I also see a case where a guy like Landon, who do you think is the faster guy?
Um,
Because
maybe early.
I think Mederos is the more athletic guy.
Yeah, maybe early it's Mederos, but I've seen fights where he's slowed down quite a bit and giving up minutes to really low volume, poor strikers. More like if you go back and watch the Guzman fight, like Guzman is like a journeyman regional guy who is losing to other journeyman regional guys. And, Mederos just got caught in kind of like a staring contest and, wasn't doing much. And I think the same thing can kind of happen here, except Landon is even more willing to throw than Guzman. Guzman's a low volume guy too. So, yeah, I think he's fought the better opposition. I have them on similar tiers. They're the same age.
To his
Mederos,
credit, he was only 2-0 in that Guzman fight. But you're right.
which was like a year ago.
Yeah, but you're right. You identified weaknesses in his game. So to me, I'd be more worried about the pressure guy breaking the kind of pretty striker, like more in the second and third round, right? Because in the first round, I think if you just kind of try to rush a guy like Mederos, I think the counters are going to be there all day. And that's what I'd be worried about from Landon. Landon, he is there to be hit. So I'm gonna go Mederos. You're gonna go Landon. Let's see what's up.
Yeah, Landon's got more knockouts. I think he hits relatively hard. I mean, he's knocked out 5 people.
That's true.
Mederos has 6 knockouts himself. I guess it's like how you rate their opposition, right?
Yeah. No, I think it's a well-matched fight. Like they're at the same level, entry level UFC. But see who the better prospect is. So yeah.
Yeah.
Now, last but not least, in the heavyweight division, we got Thomas Jefferson Peterson. He's 8-1, taking on Jamal Pogues, who's 10-4. Currently, they got it. Thomas Jefferson Peterson -165. The comeback on Jamal Pogues is +145. I got to be honest, man. When Jamal Pogues was on Contender Series, I literally was like, dude, this guy's going to be the biggest fade ever. Like, I thought that he was like one of the worst fighters I'd ever seen. But that fight he had with Parisian, I know it's Parisian. You don't got to tell me. He looked a lot better than he did on his Contenders, like significantly better, to where like he completely changed my opinion of him. Not that I'm saying he's going to be a future ranked guy, and that's not what I meant. What I meant was I thought he was complete trash. Now I think maybe he can hang around the lower tier of the UFC heavyweight division. So what do you kind of think about this matchup, and where do you kind of rate Thomas Peterson's wrestling? Because that's the big talking point about his style.
I think his wrestling can be decent. I mean, you don't really need to be that great of a wrestler at heavyweight to have success. A lot of them don't even do it. So I think he can have some success, and certain matchups are going to be more forgiving for him. But for this matchup, I think it's definitely dog or pass. Pogues has fought the way better fighters. This is Peterson's debut. I mean, Pogues has been in there with some really good wrestlers. He has good wrestling himself. He's a good grappler himself. So I think it's a good buy low spot for Pogues. The thing you just got to worry about with him is how serious is he taking this training? Because, like you said, with that Contender Series fight, it looked like he had just came off the couch. And then he comes in a little bit better shape against Parisian, and he has a good performance. And then against Parkin, he comes in and he's out of shape again. And, he's lazy in that fight. But that was a tougher matchup, going across the world to England to fight Mick Parkin. It was kind of like a setup fight for Parkin to look good. And, that's a difficult fight to prepare for. It wasn't short notice, but, with all the travel and shit, it makes it more difficult to, really perform at your best. So yeah, I think he's getting a step down in this matchup with Peterson. Peterson might be able to get him down, but I have faith that Pogues will be able to work his way back up, implement his own wrestling possibly. And then I trust the durability of Pogues a lot more than I do of Peterson. We've all seen the LFA fight with Acosta. But yeah, I think the jury's still out. I mean, he's still young, and there's enough question marks with Pogues that, maybe Pogues won't show up, and Peterson styles on him. It's hard to trust this guy, but I took Pogues.
Yeah. Not much to say. I'm gonna pick Pogues. I want you to get this one. Because I just don't know what to expect from Peterson here. Like, I need to see more UFC debut, but like, it's not a big deal that's a UFC debut. I've bet on plenty of UFC debutants. It's more so like, I just don't know what to expect from this guy, especially at this level. Low level heavyweights, when it's low level versus low level, it's harder to cap. So you should probably take the plus 145 dog in a spot like that. And he might have even been a bigger dog a few days ago. Oh, he was plus 230 on the opener. Interesting.
Yeah, bro. These lines have been out for like fucking like a month and a half. So yeah, this is one line where a lot of action came in on Pogues, and I agree with it.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So I'll go first to give you a chance. So for me, the fight to watch, we got to go with Renato Moicano versus Drew Dober. I mean, come on, man. Like, Moicano want money. Dober want the UFC knockout record. He already has it at lightweight, but I'm sure he aspires to break the Black Beast's knockout record. So you know what he wants to do. And Renato Moicano, I mean, this guy has made a name for himself. He's got a presence now. He's got his own show. Dude, on a side note, okay, I have a big fucking pet peeve. One of the things that really annoys me with MMA fans, so they'll hear a fighter do an interview, right? And Moicano loves to talk shit, and he's kind of funny, haha. And they'll be like, this guy needs to focus more on training than doing media and this. And like, I heard someone be like, he's in podcast mode, not fight mode. It's like, you realize fighters don't train 24 hours a day. Like, right? Like, they have a session, and then they have time off, then they have another session. Like, they do their interviews and their breaks between training sessions. So like, when I hear people say shit like that, I'm like, oh my God, like, stop. But
yeah, it's always annoying when any non-professional fighter gives a professional fighter advice.
Yeah, for real. Especially unsolicited.
Right.
But yeah, no, but I mean, Moicano versus Dober, there's no way this fight can be boring. And I just see violence. It's going to be a finish either way. And both guys, I know both guys still have aspirations of hitting that top 10. I know both guys still want to make that one last run, and a lot of bragging rights on the line, ranking implications, bonuses potentially. These guys are. Moicano surprisingly is not a bonus machine. You'd think he is, because when he gets on the mic talking about how he wants money, we never got bonuses for any of those performances.
Wow.
I feel for him, but Dober's a bonus machine. This fight just has bonus written all over it. And for that reason, Pepe, Moicano versus Dober is my fight to watch. What's yours?
I feel like it's kind of a cop-out for me, but like, if I'm being honest, it has to be the main event with Imavov and Dolidze, just because of the implications that it's going to have on their career in the next couple fights. And any fight that is going to be affecting the rankings so much. And, these guys really building their names right now. And like we said before, 1 or 2 fights away from a title shot. And it's just a really intriguing matchup also. I have to go with the main event with the fight to watch.
Yeah, and I'm going to give you 2 fighters to watch. Azat Maksum, you don't often see a 17-0 record, padded or not. You don't often see a record like that. And like I told y'all, to quote Eddie Alvarez, except he said it about Pettis, now we're saying it about Johnson. I mean, if you're a top 15 UFC flyweight and you haven't figured out how to beat Charles Johnson yet, there's an issue. I know that Azat didn't have the best debut, but he still got the dub. And now that he got that performance behind him, I expect him to look significantly better in his sophomore appearance and look more like the guy we saw on the regional scene. Plus, I mean, I hope his team has been watching even the slightest amount of tape on this opponent, because if they have, they know exactly what the game plan is. And if this guy can come out here and impress, he could be a flyweight to be reckoned with down the line. So for that reason, Azat Maksum is my fighter to watch. And my other fighter to watch is Roman Dolidze. Listen, he's got a very unique style. Like he doesn't fight like anybody else in the division. He's capable of great violence, but he's also a guy that can chill at times. He's a guy that can kind of take his foot off the gas. But what I'm hoping we see is he'll chill when it's time to chill, and he'll kill when it's time to kill. So for that reason, Roman Dolidze is also my fighter to watch. Who are yours?
Okay, so I'm not going to go with any of the people that I bet, because I bet a lot of underdogs, and I don't want to mush them and be like, oh, this is the fighter to watch, and then they get fucking stuck on their back for 15 minutes, or they get starched.
Fuck it,
or
go
something.
for
it. But I guess I have to go with Silva, just because she's the biggest prospect on this card, and I think it's a nice matchup for her to break through and continue her climb in the rankings and potentially get a late finish. That would be really cool to see her get like a late submission win against Vivi. That would be very impressive. I think this is a potential spot where she could really make a name for herself. She already has. She has a lot of hype. But if she was able to get a late submission on Vivi Araujo, I think we're talking title shot, one fight away from title.
Yeah, Natalia Silva, absolutely one of the fighters to watch, man. She is incredible. She brings the violence. She has amazing energy, and she speaks English.
She's hot.
Yeah, star in the making. So I cannot wait to see what she does against a stiff challenge. And Vivi is no joke. You don't just walk through Vivi Araujo. So cannot wait for that. Well, Pepe, we did it. It's going on this Saturday at the Apex. Imavov versus Dolidze. You can follow my man on Twitter. What is it again?
It's at Pepe_Sylvia 716. And shoot me a follow on Twitter. I love chatting fights and bullshitting with people.
Absolutely. This guy's the man. Follow me at Best Fight Picks on Twitter, Half the Battle Pod on Instagram. You can subscribe to Half the Battle everywhere podcasts are found. Please give a like. Leave us a comment as well. If you feel so inclined to share, that'd be amazing. And if you want to subscribe, I appreciate that too. So thank you guys very, very much. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.